Dear colleagues, let me introduce the results of research virtual laboratory works in teaching practical circuit design and development of responsibility component of students' academic integrity. The use of virtual laboratories and virtual technology in the education is so widespread now that we have a range of different tools helping us in these activities. And this situation was also deepened by the present situation in the education and present situation in the world economy and other social processes which turned online, which dramatically turned online in recent times. But there are a lot of important advantages and disadvantages in using virtual technologies in our everyday life and also in the education. So these processes need studies, need deep studies in order not only to improve them, but also to make them more efficient and to adapt our students, our trainees, to the use of those technologies. So virtual technologies in the training of engineering students help us to achieve such important goals. For example, they make the training safer, so the students do not have to deal with dangerous equipment, with dangerous parts of equipment, with dangerous technologies, but they can develop their skills using the models which are almost alike as the real equipment. So these virtual technologies are less expensive. So for trainers, the use of such technologies for the educational process is associated with less expenses for buying equipment, for maintaining equipment, and also for salaries for laboratory staff. Also, virtual technologies, or in most cases, have the complete set of measuring instruments, and some of them may be rarely used. So students may get acquainted with all those equipment and develop their knowledge of such instruments, technologies, and others. And virtual technologies are considered as modern. They are not only the way of teaching, but they also are used in the real production processes. So students can get acquainted not only with some important technologies, but they can plunge into the real production process and get acquainted with those techniques, with those software which is used in the real production process with more safer way. There are a lot of virtual laboratories used by educationalists, and the most popular of them are Volta, MATLAB, Multisim, and Modelica, and also others. They all have advantages and disadvantages. A lot of such laboratories are associated with good and bad sides of their usage. So they help students develop their knowledge, but also they prevent them from real life measurements and real life instruments as well. So these are the questions that should be considered. Also, the modern studies of use of virtual laboratories include such goals as the improvement of educational process, the improvement of fully virtual education, online education, and also the improvement of blended learning. Also, the study of virtual laboratories is associated with search of perspective of soft skills development. So soft skills are very important for modern personality, and we are in seek of the best way of development of such skills. So the virtual laboratories are also helpful in different ways in this situation. They can help our students to develop their skills of presentation, and I think that the digital literacy at all. And also virtual laboratories are important for academic integrity support, and the perspective of this academic integrity support is the subject matter of studies of a range of researchers due to the development of distance education and online education in our days. So the aim of this research, of this paper, is to describe the experience of using virtual technology for organizing the system of laboratory works on course of practical circuit design with respect to students' responsibility development and the academic integrity, as the responsibility is one of the values of academic integrity. The main research questions, so we have distinguished two research questions to achieve the aim of this study. So the first research question is associated with the students' attitude towards using the virtual technology in the course. So the students have not dealt with the virtual technology for using it in the laboratory works, and we were interested in their attitude, in their perception of such technology for the providing for organizing of their work on the in the laboratory. The second research question was associated with the changes of students' responsibility. So the literature studies consider that responsibility is also developed when we use the virtual laboratories, and responsibility is considered to be a part of academic integrity, one of the pillars of academic integrity. So considering the development of responsibility, we can consider the development of academic integrity. These two research questions were supported by the use of qualitative and quantitative methodology. We have conducted an experiment, and the results of their experiments were measured using the interview as a qualitative study and the questionnaire as a quantitative study in order to obtain the results and check the validity of such results. We have developed the system of laboratory works which were associated with the course practical circuits design. So there are 8 laboratory works. The first one is the study of uncontrolled rectifiers operating at active capacitive load. The second one, voltage compensators with continuous and impulse principles. The third one was typical circuits of switching on operational amplifiers. Fourth, frequency-dependent circuits operational amplifiers. The next in range is combination circuits in the development of control systems for electric drives. Digital timers in circuits of electric drive control, as well as the use of digital to analog and analog to digital for converting analog to digital signals. And the last one in this range is the laboratory work entitled as Combinational Description Circuits. So these laboratory works were chosen for students to work with them in the laboratory environment associated with multi-SIM. Before and after this series of laboratory work, the students were encouraged to take a survey and to discuss the ideas of their skills development. The students' attitude towards working with these laboratory works was described by them using such words as modern, simple, interesting, challenging, critical, important, and thinking and successful. So they used these words to describe the experience with working on these laboratory works using the virtual laboratory. So we can see that modern is the most important and simple also simple. These are the values of the students on the research. They considered modern, simple, and interesting to be the keywords for their description of the experience and their laboratory works. Also, we measured the level of responsibility of students before and after their studies, their work with laboratory works, and we can observe the results of such situation. The high, good, and satisfactory and low levels were determined using the scale developed by the Ukrainian scholar PAPER001612. And the questionnaire considered a range of statements for students to assess their responsibility to say no, yes, or to say no or yes with definite statement. So this approach enabled us to consider such levels of responsibility for control group and experimental group. We have 2 control groups and 4 experimental groups. So the level of responsibility increased by the second questionnaire carried out after they working with the laboratory works in comparison to the questionnaire 1, which was developed which was carried out before they are working with the laboratory works. So we can easily observe the increase of levels of students' responsibility. In the discussions of these results, the students told us that they felt less difficulties with working with the laboratory, with virtual laboratory works than they have tried while working in the laboratory. So they told that they had more time to think, to consider the important material, to think over their tasks, to think over their activities. So they were not afraid of some operating with the equipment and so on. They told that they have more time to think, they had more time to remind the previous material, to remind the knowledge from other subjects, even from the fundamental subjects. So they claimed they could concentrate on the results, on the processes associated with those laboratory works, than with carrying out some activities and experiments. So they have more time for reflection, so that made their work easier. and they coped with their tasks with a higher level. So even students told they feel less difficulties with completing these laboratory works, with giving their reports on their laboratory works. So with calculations and other important essential parts of their laboratory works, and they also claimed that they have more possibilities to work independently. They didn't need support from their colleagues, from the educators, and they told that they claimed even that it was more important and more useful for them working with such virtual technology. So they felt responsible for their activities, for their own activities and calculations. Virtual laboratory works appear to be important for the development of students' professional skills, and this is very important for our training process for the development of online learning and blended learning. Also, the virtual laboratory works appear to be important for the development of students' critical thinking. As students claimed, they had more possibilities to think over the material, to think over the processes associated with working with the laboratory works, and they also had more time to reflect, to understand the links between this material and other physical phenomena and processes. So the virtual laboratory works were attractive for students due to these possibilities and due to the new possibilities appearing while working in the virtual environment. This also the implementation of these virtual laboratory works uh, were based on the student-oriented training, as each student has had its own educational trajectory and they were able to work on their own. They didn't need the assistance of other students and they didn't need to work in teams, so they have more time to think over their knowledge, to reflect on their knowledge and so on. So this student-oriented approach helped each student to prevent some problems, some issues associated with difficulties in teaching and learning. So they were able to plunge into the material and avoid misconduct, avoid dishonesty and so on, because the links between the materials new and obtained before was very deep. So this developed the responsibility of students. So they were able to work on their own, to be responsible for their work, for their critical thinking, for their reflection on the material. And this makes the potential for academic integrity support, as it's the application of virtual laboratory works enables us to develop students' responsibility, which is the part of academic integrity. So the further studies are needed to uncover the link between academic integrity and responsibility, and also the way the virtual laboratory work can develop these links, and they can be used for further student-oriented approach and further students development. Thank you for your attention.